Welcome to Sustain This, a podcast where we discuss mindful consumption, personal style, and the quest for living a more intentional life. I'm Alyssa, a sustainable stylist.
And I'm Christina, a shopaholic turned minimalist-ish.
And I'm Sina, a color consultant and slow fashion style coach.
Together, we will unpack the nuances of what it really means to be a conscious consumer and find more joy in what we have right now. So grab your tea, your coffee, or whatever floats your boat and join us in the conversation. Let's go! Yay!
Yay!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, we were having a little bit of a fangirl moment before the conversation, and that is because we have Justine Leconte with us today. Unfortunately, Christina is not with us for the conversation, but Sina and I had a really great chat with Justine. If you do not already follow Justine Leconte, some fabulous information there. Definitely go check her out. But for those of you who aren't familiar, Justine is a business and fashion school alumna. She started her fashion label in 2015 and ensured complete ethical production by manufacturing and having all of her production in Europe. And she also uses sustainable materials. She works in projects, not fashion seasons, and so far she has designed clothing, jewelry, and handbags. Her YouTube channel has garnered over 1 million subscribers, and this is where she shares her experiences and her fashion tips. YouTube has also nominated her as a top creator in fashion. She has lived in Paris, New York, Japan, Canada, yay, Chile, and now she lives in the south of France. We are so excited for you to hear this conversation. Let's get into it. Okay. Welcome, Justine. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. And I'm looking forward to the conversation because I follow your channels as well.
This is like the most, this is just, what a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
We're having like a huge fangirl moment over here.
Big fans of your content. You definitely were one of the first creators I followed and was always, I loved watching your videos and I still enjoy them. So it's wonderful.
Thank you so much. Very kind.
Yeah, it's the truth. Okay, so Justine, we know who you are. We know what you do, but can you give anyone who is listening who doesn't already, follow you or know you, tell us a little bit about what you do, who you are, how your YouTube channel grew to such success, and then we'll jump into some questions.
Okay, so I'm a fashion designer. Originally, I studied business and then I went back to school and studied fashion design. I started my brand in 2015 and I started YouTube in 2016. I did upload some videos in 2015. But mostly in 2016, I started uploading regularly to YouTube. So I was already a designer. I was already working in that industry. And I realized that people don't necessarily know what I know. Like the industry is not transparent. People don't necessarily learn in school or at home at all about style, about wardrobe curation, about aesthetics, about proportions, what's flattering, what's not, etc. So I saw that there was a need both for my insider knowledge, so to speak, and for fashion tips in general. So that's why I started my YouTube channel after starting my label, to kind of share what I knew. And it was originally mostly to share how I work, because I knew that people look at Lagerfeld and Dior and they're like, wow, when you have an atelier of 300 seamstresses behind you, it seems easy. But what is it like when you run a label alone, when you start as a very small brand? And so that's what I wanted to share and kind of break myths about. So I thought it's going to be interesting for like a few thousand people. And then it completely blew up. So now I have two activities. I still say fashion design is my business and running my brand is my main activity. And YouTube is my hobby, but it's become quite a big hobby.
So how do you present yourself to new people? Do you say I'm a fashion designer or do you say I'm a content creator?
I say I'm a fashion designer who also makes videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
I also think that my success on YouTube is the size that my channel reached is due to the fact that I know what I'm talking about, because I have the training and because I work in this industry. And so I think it's important to put that thing first because in my head, it's also what takes up the most time.
Okay. I was going to ask, actually, what was it, do you think, that made your channel grow to the size it is now?
I think it's the expertise I've acquired through my training and through my work, and the fact that I share it transparently, because fashion is an industry that is very idealized. It's very romantic, very cool. People want to work in fashion. And when I hear that, I'm like, do you really? Like, do you know what it's really like day to day? Because it's not Fashion Week every week. Yeah. Fashion Week is a nightmare, by the way. Fashion Week means sleepless nights all week for designers. But besides that, like, it's not glamorous most of the time.
No.
It's hard work. It's high investment into a collection that you don't know will work or maybe will not down the line. Like, there are huge risks involved, and it's stressful, and you're always balancing the aesthetics of what you want to do with the reality of what you can afford as a brand, where you can produce.
Profitability.
Does your factory know how to make what you want to be made, etc., etc. So it's a tough job. And I think to this day, I'm still one of the only people in the industry who actually says it like it is. It's an industry that lives a lot from that dream that I'm trying to soothe a little bit, because many people go into fashion and then get disappointed because they're like, oh, it's not what I thought. Oh, it's paid crap. I'm like, yeah. And when you start at the bottom of the ladder, you don't really get paid at all. I mean, I study fashion design in New York. All fashion houses there are full of unpaid interns doing the work. And like, this is not normal, and it shouldn't be that way, right? So everything that I share transparently, I think, also helps create some trustworthiness for the content that I share, because I don't glamorize things.
Go ahead, Zina.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but I have like a background in design myself, but it was more like commercial fashion design. And actually most people who like dropped out of school before we even had like our first internship or our first job, they dropped out because it was exactly like you say, it was not what they expected. It was like commercialized and like fast production, and not at all that romantic, like glamour, just the way you describe it. So I think it's nice that that there is someone out there who's actually willing to share like the real, like I would have loved to know, like I have I've taken all the experiences with me, and I probably wouldn't have been without them, but I would have loved to know before, you know? Yeah.
I understand what you say.
It's neat. Yeah. No, that's such a neat thing too. Like Sina, your experience, it would have been nice to know. And you're so right, Justine, when you were saying how it's not glamorous at all. Like when I was working as a commercial wardrobe stylist, it's like you're hauling bags, and like it's not at all glamorous, okay? Like you're up at 4 a.m. steaming clothes, and it's like, why is nobody's posting about this? Like, you know, right? Or like all of the like giant garment bags piled on top of you like a donkey, you know? Like that's like what it is. So I thought it's really, really neat that you're sharing this side of things so transparently. And also, I think it's interesting that you have a business degree as well. I have one too, and I started in business and finance beforehand. And I also wonder if that informs your like practicality and your pragmatism in the way you approach your business.
It sure does.
And everything.
It sure does. I know many people who graduated with me who went on to start I'm going to say very, very fancy lines, closer to couture, very, very high end, and one-off pieces and tailor-made stuff, and they all disappeared. Like they all went bankrupt or closed shop eventually, because it is not financially sustainable. And when I started, one of my goals was to design only things that I would wear, that I know people I know would wear. So there is a certain constraint on what I do. I always say making a one-off piece is easy. That's not the challenge. It's much harder to make a piece that can be produced in production on a sewing machine that sews only straight lines and in 1,000 pieces and make it profitable, right? It's a lot harder than designing a dress that's worn at the Met Gala. I probably shouldn't say that because that's very extreme. The Met Gala, they spend thousands of hours on it and the gowns cost a fortune, no question. But designing a garment that will be sold for $2,000, then the budget is not a problem. Like, you can pick whatever fabric you want, you make it produce wherever you want. But doing something that you want priced at an affordable level for designer quality, that's a lot more challenging.
Mm-hmm. And
Sina,
also that people can actually wear, right? Yeah. Because the real, I guess the real success of a garment that you make is people actually wearing that piece, right? It's not necessarily how much it sells, it's how much people are actually willing to like wear it and love it. And
that's the criteria. And in my case, I made that even harder for myself because I produce only in Europe. And I source also almost exclusively in Europe. Like, there are a few things that I couldn't source in Europe. That's why I went somewhere else. But like, these are exceptions. I source and I produce in Europe. And that makes everything a lot more expensive. It's still okay for me because I sell directly. I don't go through retailers and distributors. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't, because then the margins wouldn't be right anymore. Like, I can't, like, there is no margin for me plus the retailer plus the distributor plus the retailer. Like, on my price level, it doesn't work. But since I sell directly, it does work. And that's why my pieces are very high quality, but still affordable. There is no intermediary. And that's the only way this could work. And that's where you see my business background. Because it's calculated to work and to be still affordable. I didn't want clothes that nobody can afford. So I'm not sexy. I'm not Balmain. I don't design 3,000 years things, but that's okay.
But that's okay, because I think most of us, our lives are not sexy, right? So
and there is also something to say about the difference between art and design. Like, I design, my clothes have an applicable purpose. Like, they are meant to be worn by people who move, who sit down, who walk. While art can be a gown from a red carpet event that is leather molded onto the body, whatever, that the person cannot sit in.
Yeah, that you just admire.
So it is beautiful. It has its purpose. It's art. But it's not what I do. What I do is design.
Justine, can you tell us a little bit about, you're talking about your collection and how with your business background, you make sure that it's financially sustainable, and you talked about how you produce in Europe. But can you, like, when you started, were these values important to you? Ethical production? Like, where did this come from?
It was always important to me, and it was the basis of my brand since the very first day. Because, let me start a little bit back in time. When I grew up, I used to wear secondhand stuff. Like, I don't come from an affluent family, and I had lots of cousins, so I inherited clothes from them, and my parents bought clothes secondhand, and I wasn't the only one in my school. Like, secondhand was normal, and clothes were of better quality, so they used to last longer, and that was completely fine. And then there was a shift somewhere at the time where I became a student, and I started to do internships, and I started to have an income. Small income, but still I could suddenly afford to go shopping and like go out of fast fashion stores, right? That was suddenly popping out of the floor like mushrooms everywhere. And I would walk out with like shopping bags feeling rich and getting an adrenaline kick every time. And the recent campaign of, I think it's Temu, draws on exactly that insight. That's why I'm thinking about this story again, because they say shop like a billionaire. Shop like a billionaire. Yeah. And I'm like, that's how I felt when I was a student and I started to be able to afford like fast fashion stuff. But very quickly, because I already knew from earlier what actual quality looks and feels like, I very quickly noticed that these clothes weren't it. Like, the flocking came off, the fabric was shrinking after 3 washes. the stitching was coming undone. Like I had more clothes than ever, and I still couldn't put outfits together. Like it didn't work.
Yeah. Oh my God. I think all of us would
Everybody
relate.
knows that feeling. Everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the quote, a full closet and nothing to wear. Boom.
Yeah.
And I hit a wall. And I loved fashion. I always have, even though I was studying business. But then after a few years working, I said, this industry fashion thing, the way it's working, it doesn't work. Like it's going into a low price, low quality, low ethics direction. That's no good. And they're presenting collections earlier and earlier and earlier, which are going to be available like over a year in the future. Like that makes no sense. Should be done differently. I will try. So like, I will try.
Yeah.
Because if you don't try, you don't know. So I went back to school and studied fashion. That's the time when Rana Plaza happened. For people who were listening, if they don't know, Rana Plaza was a garment production factory, a huge one in Bangladesh, which collapsed in 2013, and it killed over 1,000 people, injured at least as many. The world went like haywire. Like it was all over the media. Oh, this cannot be, blah, blah, blah. Fashion industry,
Because
boom.
it was all of the brands that we were shopping with that had their production
And
there,
for
right?
most people, it was still new news. Like until that biggest scandal of all, let's say, because of the proportions and the casualties that it had, it's for many people the first time they really heard about it and about how the fashion industry works.
Yeah.
For me, that day was the day when I decided on the core values that my future brand would have. Like for me, there is a before and after Rana Plaza, and when I talk in interviews, I like to say I'm the post Rana Plaza generation, right? Because for me, that changed everything. I was already going into fashion, and I still didn't know the proportions of the disaster that is the fast fashion supply chain. And on that day, I got it. I was like, okay, got the memo. So that catapulted sustainability, ethics, transparency, honesty to the very top of my values.
Okay.
And I said, I had other plans for my future fashion label, but on that day, that changed.
Wow.
Yeah, because I saw that and I thought, how could the entire industry possibly keep doing things as usual after that?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. I remember too, like I was working in design at the time, and I remember hearing it in the on the radio in my car in the morning. Yeah, yeah. And I completely, I've never thought about that before, but there's like a pre and post Rana Plaza for sure, because that was actually after hearing that, which I remember feeling so like naive and like really stupid for not knowing better. And then I watched the documentary The True Cost. I think that came like not so long after that, and that's that was when I decided that this is not going to be my job. Like I don't want to contribute. So I think it probably affected a lot of people's lives.
And looking back at it, I actually was really wrong. Like people didn't stop doing things. It even became worse because brands like Shein and Temu appeared that are pushing it to new heights.
Yeah.
Like they reinvented fast fashion. That's what they called ultra fast fashion, because it's
ultra fast fashion.
They're pushing it even further, like a lot further, which is a pity.
When you started YouTube, did you when you started posting on YouTube, did you like jump right into like explaining about your business, or did you start like talking about the downsides of fast fashion and all of these like the more ethical stuff of evolving around like fashion?
I started explaining the way I worked, how I prepared collections, how to create a mood board, how to build a designer, what's called portfolio. No, these kind of things, like about my job working as a designer. Then there were there were lots of questions under my videos that were more, I'm going to say more basic, like women telling me, I can't even really tell which proportions flatter me. Like, I'm not even sure which colors I should be wearing, which for me as a designer would be more intuitive. But I say, oh, if they don't know that, I can help. Sure. And I started making videos about that as well. That brought the channel very far suddenly. Like, that's when I had a huge growth phase. And I think I went from like 13,000 subscribers to 300,000
Whoa.
in like a bit over a year. And then in the question and the videos, I was saying, I read an article saying that this brand and that brand are like bad actors. What do you have an opinion on them? I'm like, I sure do. Let's talk about that. And that's when I started to introduce the topic of, I mean, it's more than fast fashion, right? It's also the upside of that. So ethics, how to consume more consciously, how to make more sustainable choices, how to learn to recognize good quality, because it's not something, again, that we learn in school. Like, fashion knowledge went completely lost along the way. We don't have sewing classes anymore. So what's good sewing? People don't necessarily know. And it's not their fault. Like, how would they have learned it? So I added that topic to my pillars. It's even a pillar now. It's one of my main topics on the channel.
Okay. Yeah. What do you, Justine, because you've been talking about this for a while, and Sina and I were actually speaking about this just before we got on and started recording, but like, we've all been talking about this conversation, slow fashion, sustainable quote unquote fashion, for a long time now. And now it's very, very popular, the topic. So like, how do you think the messaging has changed? Like, what has changed? What does it look like since you started? And what do you think?
When I started, I feel like there were still widely spread beliefs that sustainable fashion had to be scratchy linen and beige. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but like, let's say 20 years ago. But there are many more sustainable materials now, many more brands actually doing a good job. So they're not the most famous brands. They're not those that you find in the pedestrian area of your city, high streets. You have to look for them a little bit, but they exist. And there are many more than back when I started. Now, there is also growing awareness among all brands in the industry, from low price to high price, that people want more sustainability, or at least say they do. So everyone got the memo, and it has to be sustainable. The problem is they're all claiming sustainable now, and we're green, and so everybody's green. Even Shein and Temu are green. Fabulous. Irony. Hashtag irony. So those words are not defined. So they're being more overused than ever at the moment. And we're in an awkward sort of transition phase where everybody claims that they're sustainable. Nobody's proving it. Nobody's defining what they actually mean by sustainable, because they're all playing with the word, or green or eco or synonyms.
Anything conscious, mindful, right?
And all variations of those synonyms. So I feel like we're hearing a lot more about sustainability than we used to, but it's not properly used. So there's still a lot of work to do in educating, in informing people as to what sustainable actually means, how they can check whether a brand is actually doing what they say, or what they claim that they're doing, and to just ask for more information. That's what customer services are for, right? You can write to them and ask your question and see how they answer, how they potentially elude the question. And then that's a red flag. But, like, there are ways of getting information much more than before, because there are more sources online that are freely accessible. It's just that for consumers, it's confusing, because brands are trying to confuse you. Like, and it's a bit of work to do the research. Because if you just believe the brands, they will all tell you, yeah, we're fine, we're clean totally. Shop here, here.
Everyone will have a little sustainability tab on their shop, and then it's okay. They have that, so they must be
a green leaf. The price tag. The price tag is printed on recycled paper. Amazing.
Or we have a take back program. You can give us your donate your old clothes to us.
That's one problematic thing, because some fast fashion brands that have systems like this in place actually end up burning the clothes.
Yeah. Or you'll think that they will be repurposed directly, like old pair of jeans, new pair of jeans, or maybe old pair of jeans filling in a like car seat. You don't really know where.
It's not the case. It's not the case. And there is also another problem that I see, which is efficient marketing, very good marketing from fast fashion brands. They are great at marketing and they have budgets. Let me tell you, if I had budgets like this, I'd be a global brand already. Yeah. I'm kidding. From what I see, there is also a problem with extremely efficient marketing by fast fashion brands. And when people say, I cannot afford ethical fashion, they usually say the same things, like worded similarly, like, but I cannot afford more expensive clothes. Oh, but there are no ethical brands that are affordable. Oh, but I'm giving a job to people in Southeast Asia, so that's actually good. Things like this. These arguments are not something that they're not something that you invented. These are actually messages spread by fast fashion brands that they want you to believe because it justifies buying clothes that you kind of know are of questionable origin. And so to kind of bridge the ethic problem of buying clothes that you kind of know were made by children and underpaid women in Southeast Asia, you're telling yourself, yeah, but I deserve this. I cannot afford more. And I'm giving a job to these people. Thank me. I actually made a video on that topic, which is, I think it's called 5 Myths That Fast Fashion Brands Want You to Believe, or something like this.
Oh, okay.
Where I take
we'll
these
sure to link that
5
in the show notes.
Beliefs, because they are beliefs, they're not facts, and factually they're not true. Beliefs that fast fashion brands instillate into their marketing, and at some point everybody kind of says the same and believes it.
Yeah.
So they are really intruded the culture, like what we believe.
Yeah. I'm interested in hearing how because you have such a non-judgmental way of like educating your community when it comes to ethical, like slow fashion. How do you respond to people when they start saying, but I can't like find what I like among the ethical brands, or like, do you have any specific tips or like, words that you use so that you don't come across like judgmental?
So there is a fine line indeed between sharing information and being judgy or lecturing. And that I try to avoid at all costs. So when people come to me like, yeah, but I don't know where to start, then I give them the starting points, both in terms of sources to research, or also learn about your own style, timeless style. And then you'll find out that those trendy items from fast fashion brands are not actually contributing to your style, that you will get sick of them. So I do both directions at the same time, so to speak. And the purpose of my channel really is to give the information. Like, I cannot influence the decision that people make out of it. I can give them the decision. I really believe that information is power, and that if they have that information, they can and hopefully will make a conscious decision about whether they want to continue shopping fast fashion or not. But ultimately, it's their decision. And that's what I keep telling myself when I'm like, I kind of want to tell them that change should be avoided at all costs.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's up to them. My purpose is to make that situation transparent. I think that people do not buy fast fashion because they think it's great, right? Because they're happy to support a system that is practically based on slavery. Like people are not mean like that. I think they just don't know. So if they know, they're closer to making what I think would be a more conscious decision.
We talk a lot about that too, like just not, none of us are perfect, but when you have, like you say, when you have the right knowledge, I completely agree that knowledge is power, and then you can, no one says that you can't ever buy something from H&M again, but it's also the mindset that you have in the situation when you buy that piece.
There is also something that we need to remind people. Sometimes sustainable channels or content creators are quite radical about their own behaviors. And I prefer to say every step that you take, every fast fashion garment that you don't buy is already one step further than not doing that, right? So if you still have fast fashion clothes in your closet, well, wear them because they're already here. Like throwing them away now would be worse. So keep wearing them until they are completely worn out. Donate them to be recycled afterwards, yourself to a recycling point, not to a fast fashion brand that's going to burn them. And you have them wear them. Like, don't feel guilty about that. It's too late. But you can absolutely adapt your behavior moving forward. And that's already a great step.
I was curious about just like the tips on or because a lot of people, if we're talking about, don't buy fast fashion. So I thought it was a good segue into the whole well, if the affordability is an issue, what is it that we can look for in our clothes? Like, what is it as a designer that you look for in your clothes that shows this garment is going to last for a long time, no matter what price point it's at? That's kind of the question that I was...
When it comes to quality, do you have any, not a checklist, but things that you like to look for?
I look at the material first because if it's a clothing item, then the fabric is very important. Example of what I would not buy: vegan leather made of apple leather, for instance. That's something. It's very fashionable at the moment because it is an alternative to real leather and it is vegan. However, apple is not a fiber. It cannot be spun into a yarn, so it doesn't do fabric. it doesn't fabric. So to bind it, you need a binding material, and in that case, it's most of the time polyurethane, which is pure plastic.
Yeah.
And for me, polyurethane cannot be a viable alternative to leather. That's not a good solution. Plastic is also, it will discolor in sunlight. It will lose its shape. It will stretch. Not a good option. So that's an example of a material that I would not buy. So I look at the materials a lot. Then I look at the stitching, especially if it's a garment. I'm that person who goes into stores and turns everything inside out to see how it's sewn. And I look at the labels, and the salespeople come to me like, "Can I help?" I'm like, I'm good. Thank you.
Just investigating.
Don't mind me. But then when they ask, do you work in fashion? I'm like, yeah. Then the next question is usually, okay, so what do you think? Is it well made? Which is interesting. So yeah, the material, the stitching. And always, and that should actually be the first criteria, what will this item do in your life? How do you plan on wearing it and on using it, and how often and in which occasions? For instance, for a handbag, I like to wear my bags on the shoulder, and I put a hell of a lot of things in them. So I check the handles 10 times. I need proper handles. If I have a garment if I see a garment in the store that needs ironing every time I wear it, it's probably not for me. I don't iron. I can steam, but I really don't like ironing. People say it's like yoga. I do yoga, so I don't need ironing. I do not need ironing in my life. So what use you're going to make of the item you buy, and how is it going to be included in your life, I think is a very important criteria.
Yeah, I love that it stretches beyond the physical quality of the piece. It's also like a mindset, you know? Is it realistic for me or not?
Yeah, people buy lots of Louboutin pumps that they don't wear because
so
they're
uncomfortable.
not comfortable. Exactly.
They are so uncomfortable.
They're really high heels, really narrow pattern for the sole. They blister like crazy. And so are you realistically going to wear these shoes?
So we have a question, which is it's a little bit like for fun, like selfishly. Do you think quote unquote French style is a stereotype? Like, what do you think about those French inspired wardrobe pieces that you find online?
It's a bit of a cliche, but I do think it's true. I do think it's true. The more I travel abroad, the more I can recognize a Frenchie in a crowd, like 2 miles away. Like, and being French, this was not so obvious to me. But now that I've lived abroad and I moved back to France recently, I'm like, oh, this is so true. So true. Yeah. And even when you compare with the neighboring countries, like Spain, England, Germany, like there is a different culture and a different style of fashion in every country. Clearly.
Yeah.
So I did you're probably asking because of the video series that I made on YouTube. That was not actually French style, that was Parisian style.
Okay, right.
Otherwise, I'm going to be in trouble with the rest of France because they're going to highlight that this is not the same thing, and they'd be right. So Parisian style, yes, absolutely. If you compare capital cities in the world, there is a Parisian style. I think it's hard to debate, isn't it? What do you guys think?
I think 100%, yes.
Yeah. I recognize this too with like I make content about like Scandinavian or Danish style from time to time. Of course it varies, you know, again, like you say, there's Parisian style, there's Copenhagen style, and then there's like, I live in a little bit of a, you know, small town where it's not necessarily the same here, but it's, I find it quite interesting because you can also dive into like there's like cultural meaning behind why we dress the way we do.
So much culture in fashion. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Okay, I love that answer.
And like traditions and
no,
interesting
for sure. Yeah, because a lot of videos, like I'll do videos on Italian style, and it's of course you get like the whole I don't dress like this in Sicily, I don't dress like this in Milan, like it's very different. But I do feel like there's kind of a lot of through lines just based on the cultural elements alone.
Exactly.
I could probably recognize an Italian woman as well.
Right?
Tell them that. Tell them that.
So too. Yeah. Perfect. We got it.
But Justine, that's what I also love about your content is the creativity. Like the Met Gala reviews that you do is the you can so easily tell that you are a creative human being as well when you're like rating the like. And I really love the sentiment of that that it's more than just a dress. Or it's more than just what was the theme for this year? Was it flower garden or like the time? What was
Garden
it?
of Time.
The Garden of Time. Yeah.
Well, I do Met Gala reviews every year. I don't often review red carpet events because they are mostly princess dresses. How many princess dresses can you review? But the Met Gala is different because these are one-off gowns that, as you said, that match a motto. And the guests are really expected to apply by the motto of the night, which makes it a lot more interesting. And the gowns are like another league.
Art.
Right. That's art. Exactly. That's art. Yeah. And when I look at them, it's not so much the celebrity wearing the dress that interests me. It's more the handcraft and the people who made it. And knowing what goes into making a couture dress, like my jaw drops 100 times when preparing one video like that, because like, this is insane. The level of handcraft is incredible. And so these videos for me are more for me because they're candy for myself because I love reviewing handcraft like that, of that level. But also for the people who watch it, there's nothing applicable to your own wardrobe, but it's like eye candy. It's just art.
But also that I like that you kind of take art and bring it down on like a ground level and kind of explain, your thought process about like why this dress is so amazing and fits, because when you just look at it, you might not think the same way yourself, but then when you start explaining, I just love how down to earth it becomes.
I see.
Yeah, the art piece of the
Yes, that's also because, so I'm not saying I could make a dress like this. I probably couldn't, in all honesty, but I do understand the kind of construction that's likely underneath for the dress to hold its shape like that. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
The appreciation.
It's amazing. Like, the work is incredible. And it's, with everything that's bad about the fashion industry, something like that is good in a way. It's good that the handcraft doesn't get lost along the way, that there's still houses willing to spend so much time on a dress, and there are still people able to make that kind of dress, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Totally. Okay. Yeah. I feel like we'll wrap it up here. That was really interesting. What a great conversation. So Justine, we end with like a series of quick rapid fire questions. So you can just answer
you're gonna
Vogue
shoot
73
at
questions
me. Okay,
style.
Go.
Ready?
Okay, so first question.
No, I'm stressed.
No, you don't have to be. Okay, so first question is, what are you most looking forward to in the second half of the year?
I'm going to Paris for a fair, and this time, for once, I'm going to have time for museums. And there is one at the Centre Pompidou about surrealism. I'm getting in, no matter how.
Wow, very cool.
Interesting. Cool. Sounds like a nice trip.
Looking forward to that exhibition so much.
Yeah. Paris in fall, that must be nice too.
Rainy.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, what is your favorite closet staple that you rarely leave home without?
A nice handbag, even if I'm dressed super casually, and often red lipstick.
Your own? And a red lipstick,
dressed super casual with a nice handbag and a red lipstick, and everybody's like, she's dressed nicely. No, she isn't. It's just the bag and the lipstick.
She's chic. Is it your own designs that you'll wear, your own handbag?
I have several ones on rotation. I do wear the tote bag from my own line, the black one, because it just goes with everything, and everything fits in it. This is why I designed it for. Like, it even fits a laptop. So literally everything I need.
In one bag. Great. Let's see. If you could wear one fabric for the rest of your life, what would it be?
It would be knitted, not woven, because it's more comfortable. Probably lyocell. Lyocell is, in case somebody doesn't know, lyocell is a fiber of natural origin. It's made from wood pulp. So it does require some chemical transformation, but it's 100% natural. And it's better in wicking and breathing than cotton. And it also just folds very nicely when you wear it.
That's a nice drape, doesn't it?
It drapes fabulously.
Yeah.
Do you want me to keep going?
Best country for fashion inspiration?
It's my favorite.
I have several ones. I'm going to say Japan. Because I know Japan. When I was studying business, I spent a semester abroad there. And I still dream about it. Like that's how much it impressed me fashion-wise. If you haven't been, you're going to love it.
Okay.
I have a million photos. And I still watch them. Super inspiring.
Best country for street style watching?
Not a country. I like major cities in several countries, because in a major city, you have a mix. It's like the meeting point of different styles. And what I like is to look at the mix.
Yeah.
So cities that I know and that I like to do people watching in: Paris, Berlin, New York, London, for instance. These are such melting pots of different people that you get I get a flash, I get a kick of so much inspiration.
Favorite creative director at the moment?
Tough one. I'm gonna say Jonathan Anderson. Do you know who that is? He works at Loewe.
Yes, Loewe. Our fave.
Really? Is it? It's very creative.
It's my
so
favorite. Yeah.
When you look at the runway stuff, sometimes it feels like a bit hit and miss, but he's actually one of the rare people right now playing with the idea of good taste versus bad taste and proportions, and doing so extremely creatively and being financially successful with it, which is not easy. And he's incredibly creative. I also like the process that he has working with his team. It's like collective creativity rather than one person from the ivory tower saying this is the look and this is like make that drawing. He works collaboratively, which feels a lot more modern as well than most houses do.
And how it should be too, right? Yeah. Cool.
I think their marketing is genius too. Like I just like how like savvy and sleek everything is there in terms of how they're operating. It's cool.
And they're really good at designing the stores every season. They're really good at picking key items, key colors. But that's the marketing part, right? But in terms of creativity, I think it's top work
Jonathan
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that.
Cool. And then finally, where can our community find you on the internet?
So on YouTube and sometimes on Instagram, my name is Justine Leconte. And may I share something more?
Yes. I was going to say, was there anything new that you have coming up that you want to share, that you want us to link?
I do, because we just talked about timeless versus trends and how to curate style, how to not overconsume, etc. And I always say finding your so-called timeless style is the key, because once you know that, you also know which trends to incorporate or not from new seasons. So knowing your own style is essential. And I actually created a resource which is called 7 Steps to Timeless Style. It's a PDF guide and it's free. So if somebody listening wants it, they can request it on justineleconte.com/timeless.
Perfect.
And then they have the steps, and then they have the videos to watch, and then they can reflect on that and get to know their own preferences a little bit better.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Amazing. Yay.
I love the rapid fire questions.
Oh, good. Yeah, they're fun.
The answers were not as fast as the questions. I'm sorry, but
that's okay. No, it's good. They're good.
Well, I like the questions
around them. Good.
Thank you.
They're fun. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure.
It was a true pleasure
to have you on.
I enjoyed the chat.
So we'll make sure. Yeah, it was really great to chat and share your expertise. And we'll link everything that you mentioned in the show notes below. And we'll close it out later. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye, ladies.
We hope you enjoyed that conversation. We definitely learned a lot. If you liked this conversation, or, if you just like the podcast, don't be shy. Let us know. Give it a rating and a review anywhere you get your podcasts. Share the podcast with your friends if you like. You can also find us over on YouTube. So don't forget to hit subscribe there as well so that you don't miss an episode. Thank you as always for listening and for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode. Ciao.
Thank you so much for joining in our conversation this week. If you're enjoying the show, we'd love it if you subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple and leave us a rating and review. It's one of the best ways to support the Sustain This podcast at zero cost to you.
We're also a community-led podcast, so if you have any questions for us, topic requests, or even guests you want to hear from, please send us a DM on Instagram at sustainthis_podcast. We read all of our comments and look forward to hearing from you.
We hope you join us again next Tuesday, where we'll talk about so much more than clothes. Ciao!